Hello, my name is Chloe Folan, and I teach the Rainbow Bridge techniques, which are meditation techniques for reducing and clearing external and internal karmic imbalance, and also building the Antakarana Bridge of Light and integrating the light body to a very high level. So while this is a public video, this video is more aimed at students who are ready for the Monadic Thread techniques. So essentially, this is just a quick announcement about my upcoming Monadic Thread workshops, Monadic Thread Advanced Rainbow Bridge Technique Workshop. And I will be creating another video that goes into a little more of an explanation, but just a very quick announcement first. So as people who are already aware, meaning I have people on my private Monadic Thread email list who have been waiting for the 2024 Monadic Thread classes. Recently, I needed to reschedule the dates because I felt that the timing of the classes was a little bit rushed. And there were some people that were waiting for the classes that just need a little bit more time to prepare themselves and prepare the auric bodies appropriately. So that's essentially what this announcement is about for anyone that might have missed it. So it's been updated on my website, and I've already sent through an amended class dates. So I just want to bring up my screen share. So on my website, if you go onto my website, www.chloefolan.com, and you click on the workshop section, please scroll down to Monadic Thread Workshops, which is Advanced Rainbow Bridge Techniques. And you'll see here information given on the Monadic Thread Workshop classes. They are very in-depth classes that I facilitate. So the Monadic Thread classes are hosted over more than one class. So there are 6 classes total, 6 two-hour classes to be able to receive all of the classes, and the classes are staggered appropriately. In other words, the first class is facilitated with a little bit of homework. Then the second class builds on the first class. And then after the second class, there's a little bit more homework given. You then work with what you've been taught in preparation for the third and fourth class. And once the teachings are given in the third and fourth class, working and practicing with that information and those techniques, with the break in between third and fourth class, between the fifth and sixth class, and same momentum again. So essentially what I'm trying to say is the classes are staggered for a reason and deliberately. So in other words, to be clear, the Monadic Thread Workshop classes are being hosted via Zoom, and they need to be hosted via Zoom because my classes are always in international demand. So this is to accommodate people internationally. And I am only teaching Monadic Thread in a group format because, as most Ageless Wisdom students are aware, or even students that are just aware of the deeper mechanics, if you will, of esotericism and evolution and how evolution is prompted, evolution happens in groups. So when we are working as a group, everybody's energies and collective efforts, we all support one another with the collective efforts and the techniques being put into practice. So for a more full circle experience, these are group classes, and they are international group classes. I only usually take about a maximum of between 10 to 16 students. And the other reason for that is these are very high vibration classes, meaning there are prerequisites. So to be clear, 6 two-hour classes via Zoom. The classes are now starting in July, meaning the classes have been rescheduled to start in July. There are 2 classes in July, 2 classes in August, and 2 classes in September. And there is preparation work before these classes and prerequisites before you can avail of these classes. And there will be homework given in between the classes that needs to be put into practice to fully consummate and absorb what you've been taught. So Monadic Thread is advanced rainbow bridge techniques. So in other words, the prerequisites for joining the Monadic Thread classes are, you must have, and I have it here in the prerequisites in the highlights for the class, you must have completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 properly, and you must have completed a substantial amount of Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 work, and there are no exceptions on that. Meaning, if you have completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 properly, and you have done your best to complete a certain amount of Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 work, the development point you need to be around to avail of these classes is no external karmic imbalance. None. Not even little bits of fogging. No external karmic imbalance at all. And already building to your monad or built to your monad. So in other words, you need to be around stage 4 of building the rainbow bridge, but not just stage 4, externally clear and already building to your monads. So to double check that, for those that do have my Antakrana PDF, it's a freely available document, or those that have been following my YouTube, please reference what I say about stage 4 of building the rainbow bridge, because that is minimum where you need to be with building the light body and with building your Antakrana bridge of light before availing of these classes, and there are no exceptions. And I'll create another video. Let me make a note. I have in the past, but I'll recreate another one. So a video on why you must be at that point of development with no exceptions. So in other words, if you have completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 and you're diligently working with Rainbow Bridge Phase 2, that is where Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 and Rainbow Bridge Phase 2, that is the point of development those techniques will get you to at some point. But people do need to have patience with properly clearing all external karmic imbalance. That takes time, and you need to be methodical about it for not just your more holistic process with building your light body, but also patience with it for external reasons in terms of the healing impact that has on the outer environment and how you are subconsciously supporting the collective with getting that far with your clearing process. And I do provide a free check, and I think I mentioned that here in the document, where part of joining the classes, if you are interested, if you feel that you might be around that point of development, please do feel free to contact me. I have a button here you can click on for contacting me through my website. So just put down your name, proper contact details so I can contact you back, and put in the message that you're interested in Monadic Thread workshops. And what I will do is, with your permission, I will provide a free check, a free remote auric check, just to make sure you are at that level of development. If you are not, I will give advice over how you can keep continuing with Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 to work towards being able to responsibly avail of the Monadic Thread techniques. So please do keep that in mind, that if it happens to be that you're not quite ready yet, that's not being said to, no one should be upset by that. In fact, quite the opposite. Someone should be very glad they're working with someone who knows how to be karmically responsible with building the light body. And I will give advice over how you can continue with the techniques to get to that point. And please remember, I do facilitate the Monadic Thread workshops at least once a year. And I always give plenty of notice to give people the opportunity needed to be able to work up to being able to avail of these very high frequency workshops. So just to repeat that, if you feel you might be at a proper point of development for these classes, please do contact me through my contact form, or contact me through my website, or even PM me through my social media. But it is easier to get a hold of me via email or through my website, because as most people know, sometimes messages don't pop up properly through social media. So please contact me. And for a very quick free auric check, I'll be able to let you know if you are responsibly ready for the Monadic Thread techniques, and then we can talk further over joining and signing up. Or if you're not, I will give plenty of information to support you in your continued light body building process with clearing external karmic imbalance. And together we will work to a point where you are then able to avail of Monadic Thread. So for those who are getting ready for the Monadic Thread techniques starting in July, if you are currently working on a verb with your phase 2 clearing process, please keep working on the verb you're working through. For people that are wondering how to keep preparing, meaning you're choosing between continuing with a verb or choosing a new verb, I should say, or you're working with the phase 2 disc method, the radiation soul star disc of light method, my advice would be that for those that have been asking me how to prepare, I would highlight, if you're not working on a verb, to please work with the Rainbow Bridge phase 2 disc of light method, and please keep up momentum with it to either keep dissolving the little bit of external karmic imbalance that might still be there, or as a way to keep yourself balanced and aligned and in rhythm prior to these classes starting. So on another level, if you've already been informed that you are at an appropriate point to join these classes, your maintenance work in the lead up to these classes is the Rainbow Bridge phase 2 alternative disc method. And please try to work with that method once a day if possible, or at least minimum 4 times a week if you can't do it every day, to keep yourself in momentum. And finally, I just want to address questions that I've been receiving from people who wish to refresh the Monadic Thread classes. Because as most people are aware, every single year for nearly the past decade, I have been teaching Monadic Thread classes. And every single time I facilitate Monadic Thread classes, along with continued case studies, I am always evolving, tweaking, and adapting the Monadic Thread workshop classes. So I have people who maybe did Monadic Thread with me 5 years ago, 10 years ago, go, oh, I'd love to do a refresher, meaning they're reading through what's involved in the classes and they can even tell there's been some updates, or maybe you feel like you could do with a refresh just to get the energy flowing and things of that nature, or just to refresh your knowledge on the highest stages of building the Antakrana bridge and what's involved in the highest stages of integrating the light body at a higher level. So for those that are already Monadic Threaders, yes, you can of course avail of refreshing these classes. And if you already trained with me, my goodness, you would already be beyond an appropriate level of development. to join these classes. So it's a case of if you wish to refresh the Monadic Thread classes, please just contact me. I will remember working with you, because like that I do hand out CPD certificates for completing these classes with me properly. So I'll remember you on more than one level, from a psychic level, so to speak, as well as a administration level. So please do contact me, and you may just join the Monadic Thread classes and sign up as a refresher, and I'll talk you through that process as well. Please just contact me. So for Monadic Thread refreshers, please keep working with the Monadic Thread techniques. And minimum, please work with what I call the Monadic Thread daily centering and aligning technique. And like that, I'm not going to give out information on that publicly for obvious reasons. So if you just need a refresher on what I'm referencing, I guarantee you're doing it already, but this is what I mean by updates and adaptions. I've started giving certain Monadic Thread techniques clearer labels for definition purposes. So please, if you're already a Monadic Threader and you want to refresh the classes, just contact me. I will sign you up. But please keep working with the Monadic Thread techniques you've already been taught to prepare yourself on physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels for refreshing the classes. And now I would just like to get into a little bit about just reminding people what the Monadic Thread techniques are about. And I'm now going to speak as if I am talking to people who are getting ready for these classes, meaning not people who've already been initiated into Monadic Thread at some point in time. I'm now speaking to people that would have an interest in looking towards starting these classes with me. So from that perspective, from that point of view, the Monadic Thread techniques are aimed at meticulously and beautifully, in proper sequence, building your light body and your Antakarana bridge of light beyond monad. So that's what these classes are for. Please remember, the point of development you would be at minimum for joining these classes would be already building or built to your monad and no external karmic imbalance. So therefore, these classes, the advanced Rainbow Bridge techniques, the Monadic Thread classes, are for building the Antakarana bridge of light beyond monad in a proper, coherent sequence, continuing to integrate the light body in a proper, methodical sequence, and inducing the higher stages of building the Rainbow Bridge. Remember, you would be around stage 4 of building the Rainbow Bridge to join these classes. So therefore, Monadic Thread is for inducing responsibly. Stage 5, stage 6, and stage 7, like that, right up to stage 9. Now, that would take time. It does take a few years to achieve that. But in other words, from a perspective of building the light body, Monadic Thread helps to enforce building the light body from towards the end of stage 4, right up to and including stage 8 minimum. But that does take time, and I explain that thoroughly and give a guide on timing for that, for the higher stages of building in the classes. What Monadic Thread also does, and it's here in the highlights for it, the Monadic Thread techniques speed up the healing and resolution of internal patterns and complexes that by nature can be harder to remove. This technique also continues to build the light body by the weaving of the Monadic threads, integrating and anchoring the Monadic spark into the heart chakra. And like that, explain that thoroughly within the classes. So, but just coming back to Monadic Thread also speeds up the healing and resolution of internal karmic imbalance. While continued Rainbow Bridge Phase 2 work still does clear the vehicles internally of internal karmic imbalance. Monadic thread enforces the process. Monadic thread speeds up and enforces more quickly, resolving and dissolving internal karmic imbalance. And what that is and why is explained thoroughly during the classes. So just to be clear and to give a good summary, the Monadic Thread techniques are for students that have properly completed Rainbow Bridge Phase 1 and completed a substantial amount of Rainbow Bridge Phase 2. The point of development you need to be at to avail of these classes is building or built to your monadic chakra and no external karmic imbalance remaining. That's around stage 4 of building the Rainbow Bridge. What Monadic Thread does, Monadic Thread enforces building the Antakarana Bridge of Light beyond monad in a healthy, responsible manner and in sequence with building your light body. Monadic Thread also enforces the highest stages of building the Rainbow Bridge, meaning from the end of stage 4 up to and including minimum stage 8. But that does take time. That does take a few years. And I give a guide during the classes. And this technique also speeds up and enforces dissolving any remaining internal karmic imbalance. So I hope that's helped to also give a bit more of an explanation over what these classes are for and what these classes are about. And for people wondering, yes, these classes are based on hints and information given by the late Josephine and Norman Stevens, meaning in particular, in their second book, Building the Rainbow Bridge, Phase 2 Link with the Soul, they allude to the fact that because of the time they wrote and published that particular book, they were limited for responsible reasons over how much to put into print. Because of that, they didn't get to a point where it would have been responsible to publish information on the Monadic Thread techniques. So a large portion of what I teach is based on private information that has circulated about Phase 3 of Rainbow Bridge. Phase 3 is Monadic Thread, meaning Phase 1, working on the channel. Phase 2, external karmic imbalance, building the light body at least to monad. Phase 3 is Monadic Thread. So what's been happening in the background is when someone has reached an appropriate point of development, and if you're lucky enough to work with someone who was privately initiated into Monadic Thread, that is when Monadic Thread can then be given. So in other words, I was initiated into Monadic Thread back in 2012, and I've been teaching people at an appropriate point of development ever since. And more than that, continuing to build on the information left behind by the Stevens. So is there anything else I wanted to say on that? So yes, we are still at a point of development where it's not appropriate to publish Monadic Thread information because you must, can people please hear me and hear me responsibly? You must be built or building to your monad with no external karmic imbalance before the Monadic Thread techniques can be given. And like I said, I'm going to create a video explaining that aspect in more detail. So for that reason, as you can imagine, it's not appropriate for the Monadic Thread techniques to be published even now. Meaning, remember, Rainbow Bridge was created in the 1960s. It was released around the 1970s. And even now, in today's world, there still needs to be appropriate buffers put in place for accessing Monadic Thread. And anyone who would be aware over the basics of how you responsibly work with someone karmically would understand what I'm saying over that, but I will create a more in-depth video explaining that because it's very interesting just to hear more about anyway. Like that would be one of my intelligent pet peeves at the moment with some, what I would class as very wobbly stuff out there, where there's a severe lack of responsibility on a lot of so-called teachers' behalf of the mysteries, where that karmic law is not being adhered to. And that's also why there's so much nonsense out there over building the light body, because hierarchy will not impart and gift proper information to people that abuse it and don't work with it properly. So this is also why it's very rare to come across anyone at that point of development, meaning minimum properly built to their monad holistically with no external karmic imbalance. Meaning, let me explain it like this. I like to teach people properly for more than one reason. And I like proper buffers to be in place for a reason. There's a reason for them. It's not me being strict. It's not me being a fundamentalist. There are so many karmically responsible reasons out there that still completely apply to today's modern world, or giving certain techniques at certain points of development. So if you're looking for a wholesome, responsible pathway that enforces building the light body and building the Antakarana bridge in a responsible manner, I would hope that you would consider the rainbow bridge techniques. It does take a few years to work through the process, but you are responsibly guided every step of the way, at least by me as a teacher. But what I love about these techniques the most is they can be woven around modern life and modern lifestyle in a beautiful way. Meaning it's really not difficult to include these techniques within modern living. They just need to be applied appropriately and responsibly. And that's my first step when working with people. How to be karmically responsible with people and how to guide people through a responsible, healthy, whole process for building the light body and the Antakarana bridge of light. So even if you would be fully aware that maybe you're not at this point of development, and maybe you've never heard of the rainbow bridge techniques, if you would like to contact me just about learning more about the rainbow bridge techniques from the start, please let me know, because I do have a rainbow bridge phase 2 classes. Sorry, I have that as well. I do have upcoming rainbow bridge phase 1 classes and phase 2, but I'll save that for another video. I've got a separate announcement to make over my next round of rainbow bridge phase 1 classes. So for those that would need to start at the beginning with me, I will have an announcement made shortly over the dates for my next round of rainbow bridge phase 1 classes as well. So on that note, I believe that was the main thrust of today's video. So I'll just take off my screen share. I'll put all of the links down below this video. So on that note, I am very much looking forward to starting Monadic Thread work with people at an appropriate point of development in July. I am looking forward to hearing from people that would maybe like a free check to see if they're an appropriate point of development to start. And maybe you would just like to contact me because you're now very interested in learning more about just the rainbow bridge techniques in general. Either way, feel free to contact me. Contact me through my website, www.chloefolan.com. As always, I hope this video has been interesting. I hope this video has been insightful. 7 ray blessings to all.